Welcome to chapter 36, last chapter of the book that we have went through with all these kings. Our next chapter, our next book will be in Jeremiah, who basically has begun his ministry with the father of what here mentions Jehoiahaz towards the end of his Josiah's ministry. Josiah was killed in the Battle of Armageddon in the Old Testament. He was actually shot, and then they took him back to Jerusalem, where he died. Doesn't say how long he was there, and if he was there for a week or a month or however long before he passed away. But he did, and it says, and the people of the land took Jehoiahaz, son of Josiah, and anointed him, and placed him as king instead of his father in Jerusalem. Well, now before we go any further, let's go into a chart I put together, which is something I wish I would have had years ago, because once you get to this point with the kings, it gets very confusing with all these names, because there's different names for the different ones. Here, basically, it shows the sons of Josiah. He had four. Three of them became king, and one of them, the fourth king, was a grandson. Josiah would have been 16 years old when Jehoiahaz was born, if that was the case, because it says he was 39. And then the years of Jehoiahaz, in his name Eoahaz, and Jehoiahaz is the King James pronunciation, but at birth he was called Shalom. In that it is mentioned in 1 Chronicles 3:15 in the Apostolic Bible. He was Josiah's fourth son. He was 23 years old, taking reign, and he reigned only 3 months, which 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles both agree with. Then, so that was Josiah was the 15th king of Judah or Israel, and Eoahaz, his son, was 16. Number 17 was, and we'll find out here when we go back into the chapter of what all happened. Then the next 17th king was Eliakim, or Kim. Well, it would be Eliakim either way. Epsilon Iota, or just the Iota. In King James, Eliakim, he was renamed by Pharaoh Necho as Necho took over. Eoakim, and the E, again, the alpha, the eta can be either there or not. And then the King James called him Jehoiakim after, in that, for that name. He was the second son. He was 25 years old when he took reign. He reigned for 11 years. And his grandson of Jehoiakim was Echonias, and in 2 Chronicles it's called Echonias, and in 2 Kings Eoachin, and it's called Jehoiachin in 2 Chronicles, and in 2 Kings, in Eoakim it's called Jeconiah in Chronicles, 2 Chronicles. He was 18 years old when he took reign. It mentions 2 Kings 24:8. In the Apostolic Bible, I have 8 years for 2 Chronicles 36:9. But that 8 years was only appeared in the Complutensian Polyglot. So I'm changing that to 18 years. The 16 Aldine, 2 Kings, and Aldine 2 Chronicles have octo kedeka at 8 and 10. And the Complutensian for 2 Kings and the Alexandrinus have decake octo. But for Chronicles, Complutensian has octo, which would have made him 8. And so that wasn't right. So it's going to be changed in the next edition. And then the last king, 19, with Mattanias, his name was Mattaniah, and he was renamed by Nebuchadnezzar to Zedekiah. And I believe in Chronicles here it doesn't mention the Mattaniah's original name. He was Josiah's third son, and he was 21 years old when he took reign, and he reigned the longest of the three sons for 11 years. So you can always go back to this and find out who was who. If you need the list, I can always email it to you. So Jehoiahaz, so the people anointed him and placed him king instead of his father in Jerusalem. And Jehoiahaz was a son, being 23 years old, as we said, in his taking reign. 3 months he reigned in Jerusalem. And the king of Egypt removed him. Now, probably what happened is that Necho went up and fought with Josiah, his father, and defeated him at Megiddo. And possibly Jehoiahaz here was with his father, and then as his father was wounded and went back, and then Necho was defeated by Nebuchadnezzar, and becoming angry, went back to Egypt, and on his way back to Egypt, he probably attacked Jerusalem, because it says the king of Egypt, Necho, removed him to not give rain to him in Jerusalem. And I don't know what these two letters are here. It popped up in there. And that could have been, I don't know what it was, knee. And put him a tribute upon the land of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. So all the people now had to pay Pharaoh Necho. The next one, Jehoiakim, reigns in Judah, should have been put up here. This should drop down. Next version. And the king of Egypt placed Eliakim, son of Josiah, as king over Judah and Jerusalem, and converted his name to Jehoiakim. And Jehoahaz, his brother, Pharaoh Necho took Jehoiahaz, his brother, and brought him to Egypt, and he lived the rest of his life apparently there. So now we have Jehoiakim reigning because of Necho putting him over the kingdom. So Necho must have liked him enough to give him reign, but Necho and Nebuchadnezzar were enemies. So what happens? It says here, Jehoiakim was a son, being 25 years old, in his taking reign. In 11 years he reigned in Jerusalem. But he acted wickedly before the Lord. So Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, ascended against him and bound him in brass shackles and took him into Babylon. And like I mentioned, this is because probably Necho set him up, and Nebuchadnezzar didn't like that. Now, during his reign, Jeremiah prophesied quite a bit. It's in the book of Jeremiah. He prophesied Israel going into captivity. He prophesied the 70 year of desolation. And Jehoiakim killed Jeremiah's grandfather because of Jeremiah's ministry in telling the people about Nebuchadnezzar being successful against Jerusalem. And Jeremiah wrote 2 scrolls to Jehoiakim, and we'll find out about what happens with those scrolls when we get to get to Jeremiah next, which we'll be going into the next, beginning with the next video. And then during this time, Baruch, the right-hand man to Jeremiah, is mentioned, first mentioned during Jehoiakim's reign. And then in 2 Kings, it mentions that raiding parties of the Chaldeans, the Syrians, Moabites, and Ammonites, were sent against Israel by Jehovah and attacked them and did all sorts of damage, mainly because of Jehoiakim doing the things the opposite of God. So when Nebuchadnezzar now came down the first time, it says, "And part of the items of the house of the Lord he carried away into Babylon, and put them in his temple in Babylon." And the rest of the words of Joachim and all which he did, behold, these are written in the scroll of the words of the days of the kings of Israel and of Judah. And Jehoiakim Chin, his son, reigned instead of him. Echonias is pronounced in the King James. Jeconiah. Jehoiachin is in, I have it. It says Jehoiachin was a son being. Now this K Deca wasn't in there. I added that in there because I was telling you about the Octo by itself he wasn't 8 years old, but 18s. So I added the Chi Deca and the numbers above. So you can add that into your Apostolic Bible if you'd like. So he was 18 years old in his taking reign. In 3 months and 10 days he reigned in Jerusalem. Not very long. During his reign, Jeremiah prophesied of his going to Babylon with his family. And he acted wickedly before the Lord. And at the turn of the year, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him unto Babylon. So Nebuchadnezzar didn't like what he was doing, and also was into chains into Babylon. And with the desirable items of the house of the Lord. And Zedekiah, the brother of his father, reigned over Judah and Jerusalem. So now Jehoiachin, as I mentioned, was the grandson of Josiah. He was Jehoiakim's son. But now we go back to one of the 4 sons of Josiah. His name was called Mattaniah in 2 Kings, but it doesn't mention it here. But Zedekiah changed Nebuchadnezzar says he changed his name to Zedekiah. We find that out. And it says Zedekiah was a son being 21 years in his taking reign, and 11 years he reigned in Jerusalem. And he did the wicked thing before the Lord his God. And you will go through all this in Jeremiah a lot. You get to know Zedekiah very well. And he did not feel shame from in front of Jeremiah the prophet, and from out of the mouth of the Lord, in the annulling the things with King Nebuchadnezzar, in which he bound him by an oath, that is Nebuchadnezzar, according to God. So God was going to send these people into exile, and he wanted them to leave, but Zedekiah didn't want them to, and waited until the city was sacked. And he hardened his neck, God, and that is Zedekiah's neck, and he strengthened his heart to not return to the Lord God of Israel. And all the honorable men of Judah and the priests, so this is all the maybe generals and governors and people over the cities, different people and scribes, and the priests and the people of the land multiplied to disregard, by disregardings according to the abominations of the nation. So back to the idols, basically, where the abominations are idols. And they defiled the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. So they put these idols apparently in the house, didn't do the services of the Lord in the house. And so what happened? And the Lord God of their fathers sent out to them by the hand of his prophets, ones rising up early, even sending his messengers. And I should have wrote a list of all the different, we call them minor prophets, after Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. And many of those were prophesying during this time along with Jeremiah. I'm not sure which ones, but I'll mention which ones they are when I begin Jeremiah. For he was sparing his people in his sanctuary, and they were sneering at his messengers, the angelus, not angels, but messengers, and treating with contempt his words, and mocking among his people, until the rage of the Lord ascended among his people, until there was not a cure. God had it with them. There was no cure. There's nothing that they could do. They are going to go into 70 years of desolation of Israel, 70 years into captivity. And God, he led against them the king of the Chaldeans, Nebuchadnezzar, and the Nebuchadnezzar was from Babylon. The Assyrians had been defeated. No more Assyrians from now on. Syria, yes, that's where Damascus is. And he killed their young people, Nebuchadnezzar, that is, by the broadsword in the house of his sanctuary of God's in Jerusalem, and spared not the young men. And their Parthenus, the Parthenon in Greece, in Athens, this building made for the sacrifice to the Virgin Athena, and it's the virgin. It was a very important thing to be a virgin there. That's the attribute. That's why it was called the Parthenon. It wasn't a young woman like some of the. I'm not sure. From what I hear, Hebrew scriptures try to say that, but it's not. In the Greek, it's a virgin, and their virgins he did not show mercy on. So they were apparently attacked, raped, or whatever, put into slavery. And their presbyteros, the elders, Presbyterians comes from that, the word, he took away the tapanta, the whole, he delivered up into their hands, Babylon. And all the items of the house of God, the megala and the mikra, mega and micro, the great and the small, and the thesaurus, iku, Kyriou, the treasures of the house of the Lord. A thesaurus is a treasure, and the thesaurus we know of like a dictionary, treasure of words. Iku, economy, comes from that. And all the thesaurus of the Vasileos, the king, and of the Megistano, the mega, the great men. Panta, the whole, he carried unto Babylon. It could be all. Probably all would be better because there's no article like the other. There's the tapanta, the all, and all. There it is, the whole. I could put the whole down there, but it doesn't have ta. So it's actually all. He carried unto Babylon. A little bit of Greek there, Greek grammar. So could sketch that out and strike out, and it's gone. Go back up here, and that's pretty cool, isn't it? I love this new program, PDF Expert. And he burnt Nebuchadnezzar, that is the house of the Lord, and razed the wall of Jerusalem, tore down a lot of the wall, and its palaces, but not everything, but he damaged a lot of it. And Nehemiah comes back and sees the destruction and rebuilds it after the 70 years. And its palaces, Jerusalem being its, he burnt by pyre, fire. And every beautiful item he appointed for extinction. Boy, he did a job on Jerusalem, just as the beast will do in the future, I believe. And Nebuchadnezzar, being he, resettled the remaining ones, the Jews in Jerusalem, in Babylon. So they were all taken. And they were to him and his sons for bondmen until the kingdom of the Medes. I mentioned before this great Verdi opera, Nabucco, which means Nebuchadnezzar in Greek. It's Nabucco, Codonosor. Nabucco is Nebu, and Codonosor. And this, if you go in YouTube and look up the chorus to the Hebrew slaves of Nabucco, it's just absolutely heart-wrenching. They did a fantastic job, and there is one that has subtitles, so you know what they're saying in this opera. Highly recommend seeing it. It's wonderful. It's called Nabucco by what's Verdi's first name? Giuseppe Verdi, and it's on YouTube. So anyway, and they were to him and his sons for bondmen until the kingdom of the Medes. That was the people who lived in Iran. to fulfill the word of the Lord through the stomatos of Jeremiah, until the land favorably receives its savata, 70 years, by observing the Sabbath all the days of its desolation, to observe the Sabbath in the fulfillment of 70 years. So that's where they went. And then in the first year of Kiru, Cyrus, Vasileos person of the Persians, after the fulfillment of the saying of the Lord through the mouth of Jeremiah, the Lord awakened the pneuma of Kiru, Vasileos person, pneuma, pneumatic spirit, and he exhorted to proclaim. Kirikse, the kirigma, is the teaching of preaching in seminaries. He exhorted to proclaim in all his Vasilia in grapto, saying, in written words, saying, so they sent out a decree. Thus legi Kyros, Vasilevs person, to all the Vasilias, tis geese, the earth. The Lord God, now it calls him here, and it's Lord, all caps, that means it's Yahweh, and the tetragrammaton. So Cyrus knows who he is. Too bad the people today in the world don't know who he is. I pray for the leaders of my country that they would know who the Lord is. Yahweh, Jehovah. The Lord God of the heaven gave to me, and he gave charge to me to build to him a house in Jerusalem, in Judea. So Kiru is going to send people back, and we end up finding it's Ezra and Nehemiah. Who is there from out of you, from out of all his people? The Lord his God will be with him. Let him ascend. In the exclamation, the affirmative, let him ascend, go. And this is the end of the second Chronicle. Ezra is much after the 70 years, but before that we'll be going into the ministry of the great prophet Jeremias, and I hope you'll join us in the next video seminar when we start with Jeremiah 1. God bless.